Hello friends and welcome to BASPsolutions.com. My name is Amit Sharma and today I'm going to show you how do you debug or analyze any issue you find during migration process. So I'm going to use a lifecycle management utility today to migrate my individual artifact or entire application from one server to another server or between your application or maybe from your application to file system. I'm sure you would have seen my first video about LCM automation. If not, please do see that video. Debugging video of LCM is an extension to the video number 1 where I taught how to use LCM. So no fancy stuff, let's talk to the point. In this video, I'll show you how do you debug step by step in case your migration fail. Okay. This is a big session, therefore we split into two pieces. Today I'm going to show you how to debug your LCM using Hyperion Vision application. I also show you some of the bug you have in Vision application and how to debug it. So maybe step first you would like to know the credential of your database, the username and the other SID details, Oracle database details in case you use Oracle as your repository. So there's a file called reg.property file where you can find all the schema details like username, password is indeed encrypted format, but driver detail, your schema name, your SID name and other detail. Well, we need this information to log into your schema and get all the required information. This file you can find under your installation, under your middleware home, user project, config foundation 1112, and you can open this file. You get all the information, your username, your SID, schema name, and port and all. Right? We use this details to log into our relation database. I think I did it already. Typically, you can log in with the schema I used over here as HYP admin 2, and I know I remembered the password, so I connect to my schema. It might take some time to connect it. We continue. What is next step? Okay, it seems like we have an issue connection. I'll connect directly to my Oracle SQL. Well, I connect to my schema name. Now what is next? So typically in order to perform migration you use LCM utility. I hope most of you are familiar how to run LCM. You can invoke LCM utility from your workspace, from your shared service. So your source could be application, target could be file system, or other way around, right? So let's get started. This is what we're going to do now. First I'm going to initialize Vision application, and Vision application is going to fail, and we will debug this, the root cause analysis why Vision application failed. So when you start initializing Vision application, behind the screen it is going to invoke an LCM, and all artifact would migrate from your file system to your Vision application. Okay, so let's get started. I create a new database connection first, manage data source, API Vision application, and I'm going to use Oracle data source. Define your server detail, your SID, and the username. And password. Similarly, I connect to data source, admin, and password. And I'm going to validate this. The validation pass. Okay. Click on save. So on one hand, I initiate my Vision application. On another hand, I'll show you what is happening behind the screen. So database got created. Now let's create an application. So select a database, data source name, application name. Well, I'm going to use an application type as sample application. The moment you create sample, select sample, the application name turns out to be Vision automatically. You click on next, and this is your application summary. You click on create. Now what exactly happened when you create application? It invoke LCM utility behind the screen, and that you can see it under shared service. When you invoke your migration status report, you find one activity is in progress, right? Which is your Vision application, isn't it? So the tables which store these informations are, there are three tables where the information is stored. These are LCM migration, LCM migration task, and migration task detail. Let me underline the important terms. So all migration is recognized by migration ID. Okay. So every time you invoke LCM, this table gets populated from LCM command utility or maybe from UI. Okay. In addition to this, the primary key is migration ID. There's a foreign key for migration ID over here. For each migration, there are multiple tasks. So this table contains detail of all the tasks in a single migration. And only if your migration fail, another table number 3, migration task detail gets populated. You can actually see these tables. I quickly take you to the window where you can see these tables. So I log into a SQL developer, and you see there are three tables: LCM migration task, and task detail. You can query one by one. So for example, I query this table LCM migration, I refresh. You see the task number 13 we just now started. The moment you initialize your Vision application, the task ID 13 has been appended just now. Okay. Well, I'll show you by writing custom query. We can look at the start time and end time and get to know that task number 13 has been just appended. So, well, the structure of this LCM migration table I'll talk about in detail in another session. We would like to absolutely focus on how to debug the migration stuff because your migration failed. So LCM migration task. If you look at the first query, first table LCM migration ID is a primary key. For each migration, there are multiple tasks. For example, migration number 13, which is initialization of your planning Vision application, has done 4 tasks. Okay, so each migration there are multiple tasks, and then in addition to this, we have got other information which we see step by step. And finally, if your migration fails, the information get recorded into this table called migration task detail, right? And I can see the migration ID 13, and it has got multiple tasks, and many of the tasks got failed. I can see the status or fail status. Okay. So I could see some of the migration fail, and I could see the error code over here. Okay. Now let's go back to our LCM and see what happened exactly. Is my Vision application initialized? I get a message called Vision application got initialized successfully, right? But exactly it is not initialized. It has some error. We are going to debug this error. It looks to you as if the Vision application initialized successfully, no bug or no error found. You can see the Vision application available over here. You can directly open file, open Vision application, and you're able to log in. You are able to see all the artifacts, including your plan, variables, dimensions, everything you see. So it looks like there's nothing wrong, right? However, when you go back to your shared service and refresh, you find the Vision application got failed, right? Got failed. I just now executed 3 minutes before, and when you click on fail, you get detailed information about why it got failed. So that's what we are going to focus on. The kind of information available as part of your migration status report may not be sufficient to debug you the root cause behind it. To what extent it help you to find out the root cause, it depends on the kind of error you get, right? So we are going to do the root cause analysis of this failure. Well, when I look at the log file, I can quickly see it over here. The failure happened because of some reason, there are some user does not exist, like user Carol, Frank, Henry, and William does not exist. Therefore, I got an error message. In addition to this, I have got a couple of more errors, which we start debugging step by step. There's another group called the vision planner does not exist. Well, so if you find this, the piece of information available in a migration status report is not adequate, not enough, we can go into more detail. So far what we have done, we initialize vision application. We found a message. It is initialized successfully. We able to open vision application and browse through all data form dimension. However, when I look at the shared service, I found when I invoke vision application initialization, behind the screen it run LCM activity, and on one hand it shows it is completed. However, it failed. Right now, let's start debugging now. So I start with the query, the first table called LCM migration. Well, I'll talk about each column in greater detail. I would recommend to go through one of the documentation from Oracle, which talk about all metadata structure called Hyperion shared service, where you can see information about each table and the respective column, the purpose of each column. Right? You can just go through these tables, LCM migration, task, and all. The detailed information you can find it over here. Okay. So when I start my analysis with LCM migration, I find the task number 13, which I just now added. There's a column called package name. So we have got task ID. The package name column populates only when you run some demo application. Well, from task number 4 to 11, I ran different kind of migration. I ran backup from application to file system to application. The column number second did not populate it, but it gets populated just now when I run the vision application. So you see, there's a package got created import.xml. I can go to my file system and check this package. So all migration stuffs are available under Oracle user project, middleware user project, your instance name, import export. And if you explicitly run migration, the folder gets created as a file system. Like I did a migration few days before for a backup of my vision application and my HFM application. I can see the detail over here. However, I don't see any folder when I run LCM when I run initialization for my vision application. However, you see the folder over here called MSR, and the package got created with the latest timestamp, right? 13th of September, 9:30. When you open this package, it gives you an idea about what all happened as part of LCM. So if you focus on one of the line, you see there are 4 tasks. The source is your file system, okay, and the file path was this. It's a shared service, right? And this is your target. So it looks like when you initialize your vision application, your application migrated from file system to application. Source was file system and target was a vision application. It happened for shared service. This is actually failed, which we can see over here. Shared service failed with 4 user does not exist, right? The shared service failed for 4 user does not exist. This is one way to analyze. In addition to this, we can also write custom defined query and figure out what happened. Okay. So, well, this is one window where you can get all information about what artifacts are failed, what artifacts are used for migration. Okay. You can browse to this file. However, if you're running LCM explicitly from your shared service, either from your application to file system, as part of your backup process, system creates a file called index.xml. When you open this listing.xml, when you open this listing.xml, you find all the artifacts gets copied, including folder, file, and all the path. So this is something which is very obvious. We can analyze it. But what is not obvious, let's start doing it. So step first, when you look at your LCM migration, you find a package name got created with the import.xml detail. When you further scroll down, you find The name of the package number 13. So it seems when you initialize, it creates a package with all the details about the artifacts, their path, and other detail. The package status F, say this, the package failed, right? And then other information we get: timestamp, start time, end time, and who initiated this. Well, the format of the table is not enough in a way that we can directly interpret. Therefore, I've written a couple of SQL queries, right? So I start with my SQL query number one. um, well, if you go through my documentation, you find detail about what the purpose of each column and blah blah. Okay, the first SQL query, let me underline the important term. So in this SQL query, I like to identify the latest migration, right? The latest migration. So I apply maximum migration ID. It is a number increased by 1. So I'm trying to retrieve data from LCM migration for the latest one, latest migration ID, where I use migration ID. The column called num total, it says number of artifacts used as part of migration and number of artifact failed. Right, so when you browse through your table, you find over here called number of artifacts used, total artifacts, and how many artifacts passed and failed, isn't it? We quickly copy this SQL query, run it, and at the same time we start interpreting. Okay. So I got a message called successful. Let me copy this query and process over here. I'll go to the bottom and process this query. So now if you look at this query, I just change the filter because failed package status is F, right? So I use migration ID. Latest migration was 13 because I apply filter maximum migration ID. Number of artifacts, there were 228 artifacts in my vision application, out of which 5 artifacts failed, right? And how many artifact passed? 223 artifact passed, right? And it is originated from EPM123, which is name of my system. And you say start time, end time. The way time is mentioned in your table, it's in Unix format. It's from 1970. It count the seconds. So this is not readable. I converted this time in terms of readable format. So today, 13th of September at 4 o'clock, this task was initiated, and it took almost a 1 second, a 1 minute, okay, close to 50 second, right, when you subtract this time. So this activity, so I found it, I limited on package status F. F represent fail, S represent successful. So I wanted to filter out only those packages which are failed for the latest migration ID. And you also see the package name is not NA. What not NA means? The NA represents for when migration done by explicitly by using LCM, whereas when migration done as part of your application initialization, it is invoked by the package name. So when I say not NA means I like to focus only on those packages which is initiated by as part of your application, like vision application initialization. So I filter out NA. Now finally I have a list of failed, the latest migration which failed or passed. I use failed. This is my one line query. Maybe you can turn it to a one line view which make it more meaningful. Migration ID, number of artifacts, number of artifacts passed, failed, originated from what time and what date. Well, you got that artifact got failed, but what I like to further dig into this and find out the root cause. What artifacts have failed and root cause behind this. So further the information I can find from task ID, from LCM migration task. When you look at this query, for each migration there are multiple tasks. I have a migration number 13, there are 5 tasks used in it with the sequence number 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. And then I have a file system path where I can see. So if you look at the file system path carefully, you find these are temporary files created in a temporary folder, right? So if you go to this files, this location, which is your EPM system TMP, you don't find any one of this file exists because they're temporarily creates and get deleted, right? So if you query HSS HSP LCM you don't find any file, don't file, right? Because they temporarily creates and get deleted. Okay. So I can look at a temporary file, and then the meaningful information you can find over here: the status, the source application, target application, and uh, a number of artifact got failed, in the overall LCM running. So when I run this for task 13, there are 5 rows, and which one got failed and passed, I can look at the status over here. Okay. So to make it more meaningful, I return a custom defined SQL query which you can quickly run. From this query again, I like to find out, let me copy and paste this query first. I like to find out the file path, temporary file path, source application ID, source application project name, target application ID, and number of artifact passed or failed. You remember I use a filter clause src status not equal to C. So C represented completed, right? So if you like to know more about this column, you can quickly refer to your PDF called src status from migration task src status, and C represent your completed successfully. It's not equal to C. It means you like to see all the tasks which are either failed or completed with error, right? So I filter it out or not equals to C. And there will be multiple migration which are failed. I like to see the latest one, so I apply maximum migration ID. When I run it, I find the source application ID, which is some unique ID, source project name, reporting analysis, target application, and other artifacts I find. So I still don't get exact information why it failed. So there's another table called LCM task migration. Now remember, this table stores information only when the target fails. I explicitly mention it. Detailed failure information. So you would refer this table only when your LCM fail, and this is the key table for all kind of analysis. Okay. So when you start debugging it, you find the exact error ID. You can find it over here for migration ID 13, which I just now ran. What are different tasks run? What artifacts are copied? Artifact path, artifact name in detail, and exact what error. So if you look at these four errors are taken from this table, and therefore when you look at your LCM report, you find these errors, right? These errors are coming from this table, but you can get little more information about this. In addition to this error, I also like to figure out error ID or other information. Okay. So there is a third query which I return for figure out your LCM task detail. Now again, I run this query and highlight some important points. So if you look at this query, let's run it and test. You find a migration ID, the latest migration ID. Again, I filter on maximum migration ID, which is 13. Okay, migration ID, artifact path, right? So you see what failures are done. There are 4 users or groups called fail. So I can see permission, group, and fail. Artifact path, artifact name, group or user, uh, artifact type, and message type. Okay, so we have a message type over here, and detail, and there's a message type. So let's see the message type: A and T. A for application, T for task. Okay, so what kind of message you have there? You can see task detail, message type. So T for task level error, P for package level error, A for application level error, artifact level error. Okay, so we got the error at artifact level, isn't it? And most importantly, your detail, right, which give you the root cause analysis behind this failure. So if you start going through, you find first 4 records fail because the respective user does not find. So it's actually a bug in your vision application. When you initialize vision application, it looks there's no error, When you start debugging, you find an error over there. The for user does not exist, right? There's another group called Vision Planner Financial Management does not exist for this application, and therefore I got further error. So in the bottom of two error, I find import failed total 43 and the detailed information about it, right? So I've not written so fancy query. There are three independent queries are written which give me a meaningful information about what failure happened and root cause analysis behind this failure. You can further write a integrated query, which I did it over here. You know what I did? I just stitched these three independent query to a single query. This is my first query, which bring data from LCM migration, right? Let me highlight over here. My first part of my query from LCM migration. Okay. The second part of my query is coming from LCM migration task, and third part of my query is from LCM migration task detail, right? And I create a kind of inline query and stitch them together. This is my first query, the one which I shown you, and I'm bringing only those records where package got failed, package status failed, and the latest migration ID. The second query failed and not completed, source status is not completed. And third query, I use migration task detail, and I join query 1 and query 2. This is an alias name of first query, LC migration. This is an alias name. This is an alias name for migration task, and this is an alias name of migration task detail. And I simply join them based on migration ID. As you see, query 1 and query 2 joins on migration ID, and 2 and 3 in turn join the migration ID. Right, this is your integrated query, give you meaningful and insightful information about what all happen. If your migration fail, you get a complete information about your migration. So I just copy and run this query, and this is the information about what all migration ran, number of artifact failed, pass, originated from, and ultimately your error code, right, which you can see the number of errors, right? So this is how you can use a custom defined relational. You can directly query data from your relational table, provided that you know where table data gets stored finally as part of your LCM. Okay. So this is one first part of our analysis. Do what my next part of analysis, where I'll do a custom defined explicit migration from one server to another server, and whatever failure occur, we will start debugging this. So the essence of the story, I quickly recapitulate. When I initialize a Vision application, I got a message that Vision application initialized successfully. Actually, Vision application initialized by using LCM, which I can see over here. Okay. But though I get a message successfully executed, but there was an error, I wanted to find out the root cause behind this. So I just run a migration status report, and I got some piece of information why the failure happened. But I wanted to go more detail and figure out what exactly happened. So I started analyzing my underlying tables. So there are three tables which store this information, called LCM migration, LCM migration task, and LCM migration detail. LCM migration detail table contain information only when your migration fails, and the primary key is migration ID, and the foreign key is migration ID in both the table and task ID. When I query them independently, I found step by step that migration failed, and then finally I found a root cause analysis behind the migration. The user did not exist. So finally we found Vision application initialization has a bug, and how do you do a root cause analysis. So that's it for today. In my next session, I'll talk about how do you debug your migration when you execute migration from one server to another server using LCM. Maybe from your application to file system kind of backup, or file system to application kind of restore. So thanks for watching today's video. For any training and consulting inquiry, please visit our site bispsolutions.com, and please click on like if you like my video. Thank you.